Testing, testing. Hi, everyone. Awesome. Okay, I'll just... Cool, and we even have the timer here. Is the sound good? More or less? Yeah, let's get started then. Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here in Prague with you today. My name is Tereza Bízková. I'm coming from the regenerative finance space, and I've been based for the last 5 years in Colombia, so I'm super excited to come here today and share some of the things that we've been doing with the local community in Colombia to kind of grow the regenerative meme, let's say. So the agenda for today's talk is first going to be maybe talking about the why a little bit, like why we're even talking about this, what's the purpose of it. And the second part, we're going to look at specific strategies on how to grow a local community with 3 specific ones highlighted. So the track we're on, one of the tracks of the conference is solar punk. So I kind of wanted to use the solar punk concept as a lens for my presentation today as well. So what is actually solar punk? Solar punk is basically an optimistic vision of the future that connects 3 different things: innovation or technology, sustainability, and then community. So solar punk basically looks to create this beautiful community that coordinates and collaborates to create a sustainable future through technology. That's the most basic explanation of solarpunk. And solarpunk was born as a concept in around 2008, 2010. Some people say that it was actually born on Reddit. You'll see that it resonates a lot in popular culture. You must have seen a lot of the AI maybe images with these beautiful green cities. So that's basically the concept. Again, the 3 pillars are sustainable living, innovative technology, and community collaboration. And I found this quote by Bill McKinnon, who's an American environmentalist. And he says that the technology we need most badly is the technology of community, the knowledge about how to cooperate to get things done. And if you were to translate this into the Web3 lingo, you must have seen it on Twitter. It's basically saying it's all coordination. So I'm here to argue today that maybe the community bit, the community piece of the puzzle, is the most important work that we can be doing today, both in the like solarpunk regenerative space, but also in any ecosystem that you're trying to build. Because if you build powerful technology, if you have good sustainability structures, that's still not enough if you fail to bring your community together and find ways for them to collaborate and coordinate effectively. So again, I think that a robust, strong community is basically the most important pillar of a solarpunk future. And I think it's because of 3 main reasons. First is that a strong community can help build a resilient structure, which means that if you collaborate on the local level, if you have different networks, again, of collaboration, you can find ways to prevent or react quickly to any crisis, be it social crisis or environmental crisis. So, for example, rather than relying on global supply chains, if you have community gardens, it's much easier to always adapt than waiting, for example, in case of COVID, waiting for global deliveries when they fail. The next one is sustainability, and that's something similar. Like obviously, if you're working on the local level, it allows you to coordinate around community gardens, waste management, local. You can exchange energy and things like that. So that's the second one. And then participation, and I would say also diversity, because a community that really understands itself really can act upon its needs. So these are the main 3 pillars, or like why strong communities matter in a better vision for our future. I think the interesting bit is that with blockchain technology, we can actually make this happen in ways we never thought possible. And I really believe that blockchain is the ultimate coordination tool. It allows us to create decentralized structures for trust. It allows us to create local economies with our own cryptocurrency. We can adopt different DAO models for governance, have transparent supply chains. There's a lot. And to bring this into like a real-life example, something that I really like, one of my former colleagues was working on, is that there is this city in Mexico called San Miguel de Allende. And this city is super touristic, has been touristic for a while, a beautiful historical city in Mexico. And what has been happening over the past 2 decades is that there's been a heavy reliance on monoculture, which means that there's just corn growing around. The heavy tourism also has obviously, had its toll on the city infrastructure, on, the availability of resources and all that. So the locals have been realizing more and more that something needs to change unless they really want to succumb to the negative impacts of climate action and, have a significant decrease in quality of life and availability of resources. So what they did with blockchain is that they created basically a common treasury where everyone puts as different amount of their resources, let's say 1% of their profits, the farmers and all that, and they collectively govern this treasury to invest in things like regenerative agriculture, permaculture projects, or workshops for example, ecotourism. So it's really cool to see what they can do, because otherwise it's really difficult for us to put money into something we don't trust, right? If we all decided that we wanted to build a house together, it would probably be difficult to trace that, the relationship would be very blurry, but if we decided to do that with blockchain, it would be much easier to navigate because we can always trace everything that happened on chain. So just the point again here is that blockchain allows us to unlock many different possibilities. And a lot of these experiments are already happening on the local level, and there are probably like hundreds of local communities working on stuff like this already. But I've just highlighted a few that I've interacted with or known. So there's the traditional Dream Factory, which is basically an eco-village in Portugal that's kind of bringing a lot of these experiments to life on a smaller scale. I think we have someone here that actually visited it, so it would be cool if you can share a little bit after. I think that would be super interesting. Then there's the Green Pill Network, and the Green Pill Network was born out of work of Kevin Owocki, who is kind of the leader of the regenerative space. I guess not self-proclaimed, but one of the biggest thought leaders in the space. And he believes that green pill, it doesn't have to be the red pill or the blue pill, but the green pill. So how can we take the green pill to start seeing things from a more sustainability, regenerative perspective? So Green Pill Network basically starts local communities around the world, and they're implementing different structures around community action and impact verification. So it's really cool because they're implementing stuff like Hypersearch protocol, which is basically a new impact verification and tracking primitives. Then there is RefiDAO, and RefiDAO is also the community that I'm representing. That's around the regenerative finance concept. And RefiDAO has as its goal to basically regenerate the planet. And I know that sounds super vague, but one of the ultimate avenues towards that is basically acquiring land to protect it. But RefiDAO has a large scale of activities, but mostly kind of executed through local nodes. So RefiDAO is the mother structure, and there is Refi Costa Rica, there is Refi Portugal, there is Refi Medellin, the one I'm representing, and many more. Then there is Ethereum communities, and I think they're very interesting because Ethereum Prague is also an Ethereum community. Maybe it manifests itself through this event once a year, but there are communities that do have constant engagement. For example, I know that Ethereum Bogota in Colombia is a huge Ethereum community doing great work, so something also worth checking out, and seeing Ethereum Mexico is also a big one. Then there is Duzalu and Edge cities, who are local pop-up communities, so that means that they're not permanently placed somewhere around the world, but they kind of travel and nomad. I think that they have run very interesting experiments around on-chain reputation as well. They do a lot of collaborations with local entities whenever they go somewhere. So also, if you are into this topic, you should check them out. Now, Refi Medellin, again, is the community that I'm representing. Medellin is the second largest city of Colombia, and over a year ago, we started our local node there, and have been kind of working on different stuff that I want to share more about. So first, strategy to grow a local community is project incubation. And I think project incubation really is something that ties closely to the value proposition of your community. It's really what you have to offer to people. It's what value are you creating on the local level. I wanted to specifically say project incubation because I think a lot of communities look at incubation of people, incubation of talent, which I think is super important, but it's just the first step. For example, Ethereum Bogota, I think, again, is a great community, and they really are raising the next generation of developers in Colombia. But I think that the next level would be to create projects that can bring back value to the ecosystem, because if you're just cultivating talent, it's great, but it's very likely that the talent is going to go elsewhere after. But how can you capture this talent, this value in your community? So Project incubation. Project incubation, by that I mean basically supporting grassroots projects in your community. There's different ways to do that, like even providing value through networking, which means basically acting as the bridge, as the space where you can bring people together. It's doing things like innovation labs, hackathons, like different activities like that. This is kind of an overview of all the, let's say, project incubation issues and problems and tips. What we did specifically in Refi Medellin that has worked really well for us was a hackathon. So basically, we sponsored a hack of an Ethereum Colombia hackathon. And out of the 12 or 13 projects, we were really happy to see that 8 decided to participate in the regenerative finance track. So what we gained out of that was first awareness of our brand and the regenerative concepts, but also connection to new talent, allowing us to map different people in our community that could either serve as mentors or mentees, but also future kind of pool of interesting ideas. So I think the project incubation stage or this specific approach is really powerful for everyone to create an innovation engine in your community. So if you're not doing that, think about, OK, what is the value proposition we are thinking about in our community? And again, doesn't apply only to solarpunk futures or regenerative futures. What is the value that you're bringing in your community? What are you doing in the long term? How are you connecting the stakeholders in your ecosystem? So when we did that hackathon, again, we were super happy with the results. There was not a project that we decided to support in the long term very actively. But another project from our community, we actually decided to give them a grant and help them find investors and stuff. So I really think that's the next steps that allows you also to make your community sustainable and capture value within itself. And it's really interesting because in the long term, technically, you could even have a model around that, really being an incubator basically, and deciding on an agreement to capture some part of the project's profits should they become successful. Obviously, when it comes to challenges, some of these things can be very resource-heavy. I think the biggest challenge that I've seen is that the project stewards can experience burnout, because obviously, doing this all over again and investing in these things can be very difficult and often requires significant human resources. So I would say that it's very important to make sure that you're managing this well. Find ways to reward the stewards, to, I guess, decentralize the structure a little bit, and all that. Actually, that's what I have as one of the tips as well, for communities to consider creating some kind of reward structure for the membership, for engagement. I know we have someone from Guild here as well, and we talked about it a moment ago. So I think it's very important to create a balanced structure that really allows you to understand who are the main contributors, how you can support them, how you can maybe reward them so that they can stay in the community in the long term and actively contribute to it. Next up, the second strategy that I want to share is Web2 partnerships. So again, no matter what community you're trying to build, it's really useful to kind of tap into the community of others, right? And I think in Web3 space, we always make the mistakes of associating ourselves with other Web3 projects and looking for grants in the Web3 space only. And it's great because there's a lot of potential and a lot of power in that. But I think what works really well as well is to expand beyond that. And what we did specifically in Medellin, again, a group of 5 people that are interested in blockchain for good. We have no connections. We have no, actual, infrastructure. So, how can we actually make this happen? And we realized that doing that through Web2 partners was one of the most powerful things that we could do. So specifically, we are collaborating with an organization that's called Salvaterra. And it's an NGO looking to, they plant trees, they work on community gardens and things like that. And what they are lacking is actually, often manpower, having people that would go and participate in their activities. And what we are lacking is the opportunities to go do that. So finding these collaborations was very powerful because, again, what we got out of it was opportunities to regenerate, and what they got out of it is the people to participate and a lot of marketing. And I think that very interesting aspect, and I do have it somewhere there with the benefits, is the crypto onboarding part as well, because you would think that, okay, it was really a beneficial partnership for us, and they actually connected us with the mayor's office, and now we do have our own community gardens as well, but we would not be able to do it ourselves. But what we did for them was also very powerful, and I'm not just talking about us tagging them in like Twitter pictures. What we did for them specifically was that we helped them on board on different Web3 platforms such as Gitcoin, and they did participate in the GG18 and GG19 rounds, which are the Gitcoin grants rounds that happened last year. And they managed to raise a few $1,000s, which in Colombia for their normal fundraising would be a lot of money. So helping with that as well, I think was very powerful. And I would encourage you, whether you're looking to partner, again, with your Web3 project or in your local community, always to think about creating positive-sum games. Meaning, if I give something, if I get something, what can I give back? How can we all benefit from this? How can this not be just like, okay, let's handshake and sign a contract and that's it? Like, how can we always look at ways to connect our partners with someone else and stuff? And I think these things are very powerful because you're not just creating, like a partnership pool, but really valuable connections that can help you achieve your mission, whatever it is. Last but not least, actually, I think this is the most interesting one because I think who here knows about quadratic funding already? Okay, so I'll just do like a quick explainer. Quadratic funding is a way to fund what matters. That's the easiest explanation. And what is cool about it is that it does so in a very democratic way. So normally, if you were as a community to fund something, and it would be very likely that somebody would be able to contribute €5, somebody 50, somebody 5,000 if they wanted to. And in these mechanisms, normally what happens is that the person with the most resources has biggest say in what's going to happen, right? So quadratic funding shifts this around. Quadratic funding says that it doesn't matter how much you contribute as much as the number of vote, aka donations, a project gets. So it's really interesting because it's a mechanism first to fund something, but also to understand what a community wants. So for example, if we were here to run a quadratic funding round, we could say, okay, what are maybe the speakers that we want to invite, and we could collectively vote on that, but vote by donations. So let's say that everyone donates €1 to a speaker, and then we can see and maybe allocate any extra budget that we have to that speaker, because collectively the number of votes was highest, but also, again, votes matter over amounts. So it's a very interesting mechanism, and maybe many communities have been leveraging it already. This is the formula, but don't ask me to explain it to you. It's kind of tricky, or as you see, complex, but there is a calculator online. I think it's on what the fuck, WTF is QF. You can find a calculator there, you can test how it would look in your community. But again, it's a very interesting concept. So another way to grow your community and to help it fund itself is to run small local quadratic funding rounds. And it's really interesting because normally, let's say that you start a community here in Prague and you want to run meetups, you'll see that you're running on this treadmill of getting new sponsorship, new donations for every single meetup, and you're always on this treadmill, and it's really difficult to get tired of it. But with QF, for example, you'll see how much the community that you've built values your projects, and you can find ways to partner with someone else, so you can get a matching pool from a different project, but also some income from your community. So it's a very creative way to fund things that matter to your community. This is the kind of overview. So we haven't launched a QF as refined Medellin yet, but there have been quadratic funding rounds happening in Colombia, and I think they were quite successful because we managed to raise $10,000 for it. So $10,000 were the matching pool, and then we let people vote with donations, and based on those donations, we distributed the $10,000 on what was popular. So I think that was very, very successful, and we had 20 projects participate. There's also, I think the ReFi node in Thailand is running their QF rounds, and they're raising money actively. But it's a really good thing to combine with the other strategies that I mentioned. For example, if you find a partner that is willing to donate $5,000 or something like that, you can use it as the matching pool for the quadratic funding. And it's much more powerful than normal ESG activities. because the community can directly see that this is the project that's donating, this is the project that allows us to fund what matters to us. It's basically big companies giving money to a community and letting the community decide what they want to do with it, rather than the company deciding, oh, I want to donate to this NGO. So it's really powerful if you make it work. Again, it's now the big thing in the Web3 space, and you'll definitely come across it when it comes to funding open source software and other things as well. So definitely check it out. I think there are also different other two, at least, funding mechanisms. One of them is Hypersource, the one I already mentioned, which is basically an impact token in very simplistic terms. And then there is the Retro PGF, which is the retro funding retroactive public goods funding, sorry. And that's basically a mechanism where you have some budget. Again, you can maybe raise it from sponsors and then decide retroactively who are the stakeholders that you want to reward in your community. So it would be, for example, us attending ETH Prague and then saying, OK, we really love the work that the Sun guys were doing, or we loved the catering. So we want to split the money that we have towards these two groups, rather than, I don't know, the gardeners or something like that. So those two mechanisms are super interesting as well, but generally, QF is something very, very powerful for community to fund itself. I think what is interesting with quadratic funding as well is the challenges, because again, you will see it hyped up a lot, but it's not without its problems. People say that one of the biggest problems is the resource dilution, because obviously, if you allow anyone to participate, maybe in a community you can have hundreds of projects participating, but if the matching pool is not high enough, every project is going to get, let's say, $100, which is not really enough to generate more impact in the future. So you need to kind of play around that, maybe set some benchmarks or milestone or restrict participation based on different criteria, things like that. The second problem that everyone always talks about is the Keynesian beauty contest, which is basically our bias towards the things that we think that are popular rather than the things that we like, right? So if there is a project or someone in your community that's super popular, always post pictures, is just like very visible, it's likely that they might get more votes in the quadratic funding rounds than people that are doing real impact but maybe are not as visible or as flashy. So this is something that's a big issue for quadratic funding as of now, but something that should be hopefully eradicated with like proper impact structures, like you asking for great the right metrics. So I think if you want to check it out, feel free to go to Gitcoin website. There's ClearFund, Givet, and also Potluck that are doing a lot of funding, public goods funding experiments, and really worth exploring. So to sum up these three strategies, again, there's project incubation, Web2 partnerships, and quadratic funding. And I think they connect really well together, and they can tell like a really good story for your community, because you can have the project incubation or talent incubation and then project incubation that allows you to really spark innovation in your community and make sure that there is some kind of value creation. Then there is the second one, build partnerships, that allows you to really create strong connections within your community and outside of it, and really build bridges. So you can maybe match some of the talent that you already captured in your community with talent outside of your community as well, very powerful. And lastly, it's quadratic funding, and I think that's for more mature stage that allows you to, really find out what matters to your community and give it to tools to fund itself. And reward external sponsors or partners that want to engage in it as well. So that's all from me. I want to ask if there are any questions, but thank you.
So in ReFi, Fi stands for finance. How many projects do you know who are being successful in, drawing people to them with the financial incentive, or at least projects that can generate enough revenue to at least stay, not go into minus with their events and all the initiatives?
Yeah, so obviously we run as an NGO. We are not a for-profit company. I think our goal, again, is to support the broader refi space, the regenerative finance space, where there are companies that are profitable, although it's still a new space, and you will, yeah, like everyone can start a refi project. Like everyone wants to save the world and plant trees and stuff like that, but how can you create a business model that helps you sustain it? That's the tricky part. So I would say that this space hasn't fully figured it out yet, because there's a lot of initiatives, for example, around like on-chain carbon credits, other form of credits, like maybe credits for girls' education and stuff like that. So there are efforts to monetize it better and find ways to sustain it. I think my favorite project in the refi space right now is called Glow Dollar. It's basically a stablecoin. So normally stablecoins function in a way that they get a pool of funds from the holders of the token. They invest it in some different investment mechanisms like governmental bonds. Then they use the returns as profit, right? So what Glow Dollar does is they do the same. They invest in governmental bonds in the US that have like 4% interest rate. And then they invest these $4 in a good cause of your choice. So, for example, the main one they started with was the eradication of extreme poverty. And it's really cool because just by holding a token, you're doing something good, and that's called like programmable money. And I think projects like these that really bridge kind of like DeFi with refi are more likely to succeed than just like refi because we want to, I don't know, have a beautiful green world. I think projects like that have that inherent value, and people are already holding Glow to diversify their portfolio and stuff. So I think projects like this could really succeed. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Hi, I just have a quick question. So if someone is not really familiar with this space and want to get started in refi, just learn more about it, like what's the best way to start?
Yeah, I think either join a local node if there is already one, and there is a refi DAO local node here in Prague. But also, I would say just dive into books like The Green Pill by Kevin Owocki, listen to the Green Pill podcast. There's also the Crypto Altruism podcast and Refi podcast. So I would suggest get started with those and engage with your local community if you can, or even the global Refi community.
Amazing, thank you.
Do you see other nodes in Colombia or maybe in other countries using the techniques that you just show up, like the Web2 like partnerships or anything in Bogota, Colombia?
Yeah, so we have 5 refi nodes in Colombia, actually. And I think in Bogota, they have been partnering a lot with NGOs, helping to stop the wildfires that were happening there last year or in the beginning of this year. And it was really cool because, for example, they started a Give It campaign. And, Give It, maybe you're going to raise $200 there. But again, it's a new avenue that the NGO would otherwise not have. So I think that this partnership, like bringing the best of both worlds, is something really, really cool.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
If I may ask, how big are the numbers? Like you are talking about local communities here and there. Like what are the numbers, and who are the people that are joining? What is the age range or interest, or like any social graph that you can share? Thank you.
Yeah, I think there's it's kind of diverse. You'll see in refi people, there are people that have been working on carbon markets for a few decades. There are people that just finished their degrees. So I would say it's very diverse. Generally, it's people, or like a lot of people have entered the blockchain space and maybe haven't found anything that would really speak to them until they entered like refi, because it can be kind of discouraging for people that are interested in impact and stuff, but all you see is, I don't know, crypto trading, things like that. So I think people that wanted something more to build with this technology have really found themselves in refi, but it's also people, again, that have been in the traditional impact space for decades and are entering now to kind of see what they can do with the technology.
Okay, that's all the time. I would like to thank Tereza for giving her talk, and if everyone wants to clap or something, we can do that.
Thank you.